Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 5 of my Kivy video tutorial. In this part of the tutorial, I am going to cover a bunch of topics that I haven't covered previously. Pretty much all of the different widgets and little neat things you can do with Kivy. So specifically, we're going to be looking at the checkbox, radio buttons, switch, pop-ups, spinners, tabbed panels, how to switch screens, and a whole bunch more. Like always, all the code is available in the description underneath of the video, along with a nice cheat sheet. And if you haven't seen any of the previous tutorials, you should probably watch those, and I provide a card right here. And I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Okay, so I have 3 files here I created ahead of time. KivyTut.py, that's Python file. Here's a Kivy file called sample KV, and KivyTut2.py. And I went and imported a whole bunch of things here because I didn't want to waste time on that. Now I'm going to be creating a pop-up here in a second, so why don't I just go ahead and create this right now. So we're just going to pass pop-up inside of there, and then we will throw pass, and that's just going to be a placeholder for us. Now we will create our main class, and I'm going to call this sample box layout because it's a box layout. And of course, to do that, we need to pass box layout to it. And the very first thing I want to do here is to cover the checkbox. Now I'm going to create an object property so that we will be able to talk back and forth between my Kivy file and my Python file here. And I'm just going to call this checkbox is active is equal to, and this is going to be object property, and I'm going to give it a default value of false. Now after that, I'm going to create a function that the checkbox is going to be calling, and I'm going to cover what goes on in the Kivy file, of course. So let's say that I just want to call this checkbox and 18 clicked, because we're going to have them check a checkbox whether they are 18 or not. And we will have the instance passed inside of here and the value from the checkbox. And then I'm going to say if the value that was passed from the checkbox is true, because a checkbox is either going to be true or false, I am going to print out inside of the console. You could, of course, do any of the numerous different things we've already covered, or you could just print out to the console if you just want to test this. And else, the only other option is going to be that the checkbox is unchecked. So there's only going to be 2 states available for it. And that is all that I'm going to put inside of that guy right now. Now let's go and create our sample app and get all of our app methods and such. We, of course, just like always, are going to call for build to build our interface for us. You only need one self, of course. And feel free to pause the video if at any point in time I'm going a little bit too quickly. Something neat to do here. Why don't we go and I'll show you exactly how to change the background color for our whole entire window. That's just going to be clear color, and this is going to be 0 to 1, which is going to represent a percentage of between 0 and 255 for RGB colors, as well as alpha. And I'm just going to make the background white, just to do something different. And there you can see red, green, blue, and alpha, so it's going to be white. And then we are going to go return sample box. I'm going to do my best to cover everything that I haven't already previously covered in this tutorial, or a heck of a lot of it. Of course, there are many widgets that are very rarely used, so I'm going to cover just the most commonly used ones here that I haven't already talked about. And then sample app, of course, and we will call run to run that. Alright, so that is all we're going to need to be able to work with a checkbox. And now I'm going to jump over into sample KV, our Kivy file, and create our checkbox over there. Alright, so the very first thing I'm going to do here is put hash and colon and import checkbox. And there we go. I'm then going to go and create the sample box layout, which is going to be the root, so we'll be able to access all of the different methods that we have inside of there. And of course that comes from this guy right here. And then sample box layout. And I'm going to give this an orientation. Remember, this is a box layout, obviously. So we're going to say orientation, and I'm going to have this one be vertical. And I'm going to give it a padding that is going to be equal to 10, and spacing, the padding is going to be the padding, the space around the widgets, and spacing is going to be the space between the window, outer shell of the window, and the interior where all the widgets are going to lie. Then I'm going to create another box layout inside of this, and this is going to hold all of our widgets together. And we're going to use orientation again, except this time I'm going to use horizontal. And I'm going to try to divide my screen up here because I'm going to try to put a whole bunch of these widgets all in one little box. So I'm going to say something like 0.22. Then actually I also want to use a custom label here. So let's go up here and create a custom label. And we'll call this custom label. And of course this is going to be taking from the label widget that we already have available. And I'm just going to come in here and define a color for this, which is going to be black, and make the alpha 1. And let's just keep that the way that is. And then we can come down here and we can have our label all be in black just by doing that. So pretty neat stuff. And then we can come in and say something like text, are you over 18? And then if we, let's go and size this. Let's say something like size hint, and we'll say X, and we'll say that we want to take up 0.80 of our available space. And then we will go and create our checkbox inside of here, what we've been talking about doing. And if you want to trigger an event, we could say something like when it is active, we want to refer to root. And remember, we created the function over there called checkbox 18. Let's checkbox 18 clicked. And to it, we will pass self, which is going to be the instance for this checkbox, and whether it is active or not, which will be the value we passed over inside of there. And we'll say size hint here, X, and 0.55. You just want to play around with these different little guys. Of course, this guy right here is this guy here. So self, which would be the checkbox, is going to be the instance, and then the value right there. You could just pass over the value, but I just wanted to show you how to pass over the instance as well, so you'd be able to do further tests after that. Okay, and I believe that is all we need to do. And we'll open up our terminal. If you're on Windows, of course, you can just run it and it'll automatically run, but we're on a Macintosh here. And if we run it, you can see right there, are you over 18? And whenever I click on it, you're going to see checkbox checked, checkbox unchecked, checkbox checked, checkbox unchecked. And there you go. So there's a demonstration of how we can use checkboxes. And now I'm going to show you something similar, which is how we can use radio buttons. Now the radio buttons are actually going to be grouped checkboxes. Okay, so you're actually going to call them checkboxes, but they're going to work like regular old radio buttons if you put them in a group. And there's very little we're going to do here. On active is still going to work just like it worked with the checkbox, so that you'll call or run code inside of the main Python file in exactly the same way. So what I want to do is just create an object property here and go and say true for this as a default, and we're going to create 3 different colors and have the user go and pick which is their favorite. So we'll say our options are going to be blue, red, and green. And let's go and set these to false, because with radio buttons you can only have one of them be active at a time. And that's all I'm going to do there. Remember, they are going to work exactly the same with the checkbox. So now I'll jump over into the Kivy file, and we are going to create a box layout that is going to be horizontal on the screen just with the other checkbox. So we're going to throw that inside of there, and let's say this is something like 0.55. And then inside of here, we're going to throw our custom labels inside of there. And I'm going to say text, and we will say favorite color, which is going to be the option they have, and do a size hint on this, X, and I'm going to throw 265 inside of there, so you can see that you can do 3-digit little guys to go and customize the size that each of these is going to take up. And then, as you can see here, even though this is a radio button, we are going to call it a checkbox. And what turns it into a radio button is you're going to put them all in a group. And I'm going to call that group favorite color. and I'm going to say that I want the value to this. I'm going to pay reference to the object property that we have otherwise, and have this be root and blue to show you that you can also access object properties directly right like this. And then we will do a size hint once again, x, and here we're going to do it 0.05, and then we will throw a label that's going to be tied to that radio button. So we'll say, well, let's make this custom label, obviously. And then the custom label text for this guy is going to be blue. And let's go and copy this guy right here as well. And we'll throw this inside of there and change that to 0.15. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other two color options we have here. So we'll paste that inside of there, and we will paste that inside of there. And then this guy's going to be blue, this checkbox here, so we'll change this to red, change this to red, change this to green, and change this to green right like that. And we will save it, and that's all we need to do. Open this guy up inside of here and run it, and there you can see now we have radio buttons. And you're going to be able to select each of these, and whenever you select one of them, the other one is automatically, or the other two are automatically going to go false. And like I said, you're going to be able to access those changes with on active, just like you did with a checkbox, of course, because they are technically checkboxes. Now let's jump back over inside of here and let's handle our switch and what we're going to do with that. So I'm going to define a function called switch on, and it's going to get past self and instance as well as a value. And here we're going to do pretty much exactly the same thing. Let's go and just copy this to save time. So we'll paste that inside of there, and we'll say if true, and we'll say switch on, and here we'll say switch off. Just wanted to keep this nice and simple so you can see exactly how everything works in just a couple lines of code rather than making some big giant complicated thing. Back over inside of our Kivy file, and I'm going to go and grab this guy right here and jump down here and paste that inside of there, and let's just change this to a height of 30. And then we're going to have another box layout inside of here. This is also going to be horizontal, size hint. Let's change this to 2.5 or 0.25. Then we're going to have a custom label. And here what I want to do is actually also cover the slider along with the switch. But I'm going to show you the changes that are being made directly here inside the Kivy file. So let's go and let's actually create a label and have the value change based off of the changes to our slider values. So we're going to call this slider underscore ID, and then, well, let's get the value dot value. And then with a slider, you're going to give it an ID here in this situation so that I'll be able to change the value for the custom label based off the changes to our slider. So the ID I used there is slider ID. You'll then be able to define the minimum value for our slider, which is going to be -100. The max value is going to be 100. The starting value is going to be 0, and then the step is going to be each time the slider moves, it's going to go from, well, if I put 1 inside of there, that's going to keep it from going into the area of fractions. Okay? Now let's go in here and also create another box layout, and this guy is going to be for our switch. Throw that inside of there. This is also going to be horizontal, size hint 0.25, and we're going to create a custom label for this guy as well. Custom label, and this is going to just say text on dash off as the starting value, and then we will call for switch or throw our switch inside of there and give it the ID of switch ID, and then I'm going to say on active I want to call the function we created, which is switch on, and we will pass self as well as the value for it, which is going to be whether it is active or not, true or false. And save that, and if we come in here and run it, oh, have a little bug. What did we do wrong? Oh, we forgot to indent that. No big deal. In there, indent that, and of course indent all these different things. Got a little bit ahead of myself. Save it, execute. Oh, did I do that somewhere else? Let's go and fix that as well. Got that there. Got the slider in the right place. Whenever I'm going and writing this code real giant like this, you can see it. It's sometimes hard for me to see it, so that's why I make little bugs like that. Sorry about that. Inside of there, run it, and there you can see it works now. And if we hit the switch, you're going to see switch on comes down there, switch off, And you're also going to see here with the slider, whenever we move this, it's automatically changing the value inside of our label. Okay, cool stuff. Now let's take a look at pop-ups as well as spinners. Okay, so we're just going to continue on here. I'm over in the Python file, of course, and first thing I'm going to show you what to do is how to open a pop-up. And I'm going to have it triggered by a button press, and it's going to open up a pop-up. And I'm going to say the pop-up is going to be equal to custom pop-up, and this guy up here is our custom pop-up. Remember, we created that earlier. And whenever this function is called, it is automatically going to open the pop-up on our screen. So we just call open on it, and that's all we got to do with that. And while we're inside of here, let's go and create our spinner as well. So we will go and call this spinner clicked, and that's going to allow you to go and grab different values from our spinner widget, and depending upon whatever they pick, I'm going to print out to the console the value that they clicked on, just that easily. Save that, jump over in my Kivy file, and I'm going to define a custom pop-up inside of here this time. That's why we defined that class over there in the other little box. So it is called custom pop-up, has to be the same name as what we defined with the class. And here I can say size hint, and let's have this be 0.5 and 0.5. Auto dismiss, we're going to have that set to false because we're going to put a button inside of our pop-up that's going to dismiss it for us, or close it, or whatever you want to call it. And let's say I wanted to give this a title as well, and let's just make it the pop-up. And then I want to put a button inside of it, and the button is going to have the text of close, and whenever that's clicked on, it's going to close the pop-up. And how you close the pop-up is you call for root dismiss. There we are. And now we're going to come down inside of here and just continue putting some stuff inside of here. I'm going to do another box layout, and we're going to have it on the same level as this guy right here. There it is. Paste that inside of there, and this is going to be horizontal, and I'm going to change the height on this guy to 30, just like we did previously. And make sure you have the tabs all set properly on this, otherwise you will get errors as you saw previously. Then inside of here I'm going to put another box layout, and this is going to be exactly what I have here. Just trying to keep everything exactly the same on the screen so it looks okay. Then I'm going to throw a button inside of here that whenever it's clicked, it's going to open up our pop-up. So we'll say text, and we'll say open pop-up. And to open the pop-up, we just go on press and root, and we call open pop-up, which is over inside of our Python file. Then I'm going to go and create another box layout for this guy, and this one's going to hold our spinner inside of it, keep everything exactly the same, and we'll call spinner. And the very first thing that's going to show up in the spinner is going to be first, and then the additional values we're going to have inside of there are going to be in an array. So we'll call first, obviously, second, and third. I'm going to give this an ID as well, spinner ID. And here you call on text to catch the text that was selected with the spinner. And we're going to pass this back to the method we created in our Python file, and it was called spinner clicked. And here we will pass back the text that was in the spinner. So to get that, you go spinner ID like that and text, and that's going to pass back that text. All right, and we're going to save that and run it, and there we go. And open pop-up. Whoop, got an error. What did I do wrong? Forgot to put a capital F inside of there. Little silly things. Scroll back up inside of here and change that to an uppercase F, save it, and we'll run it, and there it is. And if we click on open pop-up, you can see that the pop-up opens up, taking about 50% of the screen. Click on close, it goes away. Click on first, here is our spinner. Click on first there, second, you can see there spinner value second, and spinner value third, and spinner value first. Okay? And that is how the pop-up as well as the spinner works. And the last thing I'm going to show you before I show you how to switch screens with Kivy is the tabbed panel. And with the tabbed panel, I'm going to create everything directly inside of the Kivy file. So let's go and just grab this guy right here and jump down here and paste that inside of there. box layout, horizontal, and we'll change this to height and change this to 30. Make sure we get our white space all correct here. And then we're going to throw another box layout inside of there, horizontal and 0.25. That works perfectly fine for me. And now let's create our tabbed panel. So tabbed panel, and I'm going to say do default tab and have this be marked as false. So nothing's going to be highlighted. That's what that one's going to do. You can play around with these different defaults and see how things change by changing them. And then you're going to put each piece of information you put inside of the panel in something called a tabbed panel item. So I'm just going to put text inside of here, and you can put anything inside of here. This is going to be first tab, and this is going to be the tab name on the panel. And then you can put anything inside of here you'd like. So then I'm going to throw a label. You could throw buttons, you could throw all sorts of different types of widgets. You can put, anything inside of there. But I'm going to keep it very simple, and I'm just going to say text and put content of first panel. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing for the other different tabbed panels. Paste that there, and let's do 3 of them. Do as many as you'd like, obviously. Have this be second tab. Change this to second panel, and this will be third tab, and this will be third panel. That's it. Open it up and run it. And there you can see content of first panel, content of second panel, third panel, first panel, so forth and so on. So there's a whole bunch of different widgets that I haven't covered before, and now I'm going to show you how to switch screens with Kivy. This time I'm going to do everything. I'm going to put all the Kivy data inside of the Python file, and you can do that if you use the builder like we have right here. And then I'm going to show you how to manage the different screens and switch between them using what's called the Screen Manager. So if you want to create your Kivy code directly in your Python file, you just go builder like this, load, string, 3 double quotes, and then inside of here you're going to put everything you want. So I'm going to call this screen 1, and I'm going to have 2 different screens inside of here. So we'll call this screen 1, and inside of this screen we're going to have a box layout, and you can put anything inside of here that you could ever want, just like you do whenever you're using just one screen. Here I'm going to say text, and on this button, whenever it is clicked on, it's going to go to screen 2. And you're going to be able to change screens not only with buttons, but with basically the activation or the event from any widget. It's going to allow you to change buttons, or you could just do it directly inside of your code. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say whenever this button is pressed, what I want to do is open screen 2. So here we'll just go on press, and you're going to be able to come in here and define the direction that the screen is going to slide in. So that's called a transition and direction. And here we're going to have this go to the left side. You're also going to be able to define the duration, how long it is going to take for the screen to slide. And here I'll just set this to 1. You can play around with that and see what other different things it does. And then if you want to change the screen that it currently is on, you just go root manager current, and then you are going to switch to, in this situation, I'm going to switch to screen 2. And down here below, you're going to see exactly where I assign this. It's going to be the name that's assigned to the screen is going to define what happens or what screen we switch to. All right, so we are going to do that exact same thing for screen 2. So let's just go and copy that, paste that inside of there, and then change this to 2. Box layout, go to screen 1 in this situation. Let's just leave this be exactly the same as it was, except change this to screen 1, obviously. And then what we need to do is define our classes for our 2 different screens. So I'm going to go class screen 1, and then we'll just define this with screen, and we will throw pass inside of there. We're going to do exactly the same thing for screen number 2. Just change this to 2, and then we'll come in here and call for our screen manager, which is going to control moving between the screens. So I'm just going to call this screen manager and call screen manager, and make sure you spell that correctly. And then I just add the screens to the screen manager and supply the name. Remember I said here, this is the name, this is the name. We need to supply the names to the screen manager so it knows what screen is assigned to what name. And we do that by just going screen manager and add widget and screen 1. And here we'll assign the name for that screen, which is going to be screen 1, exactly like I defined up above in the Kivy code. And here we're going to do the same thing for screen 2. So just change this to screen 2 and change this to screen 2. Then we have to create our class for our application. It's going to run, so let's just call this Kivy tut2 app and throw the app inside of there. And then we're going to build this, of course. So we'll go build self and return screen manager, and then we'll run it. And to do that, we just go, let's just call this sample app is equal to Kivy tut2 app, and then we'll go sample app again and run just like we did before. And save it, open it up and run it. Whoops, I have to open up the different one up here. Remember, I changed this to Kivy tut2 like that and run it. And there it is. And this is just one big giant button, but like I said, you can put labels, buttons, anything you would like, and if you click on it, it's going to switch to the different screens on your screen. Okay, so pretty cool, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Wanted to cover a whole ton of widgets in one video, and I think I did an okay job. Like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time,